That the first thing we have to do is feel really, really bad about who we are. And then the other one is that characters that tend to get converted to theism as a positive sign of character growth. Or even if they don't get converted, they get this sort of kind of vaguely liberal, ecumenical sort of thing, like, okay, I'll give church a try. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's the flat earth atheist, which is an atheist in a sci-fi fantasy story where magic and crazy stuff is happening around you. But the truth is that even if magic or supernatural is real, by the way, in real life, it's probably not. It doesn't prove anything else but the phenomenon itself. So we want to talk about both positive and negative. I guess let's start out with a really, really crazy one and then work ourselves to something more positive. I don't know if you guys have heard of chick tracts. Actually, before we talk about that, let's take a call.
Yeah.
Robert is in Woodinville. Robert, are you there? What have you got for us?
Robert?
Robert?
Yes.
Hi.
Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
What have you got for us?
Well, it's kind of a comment or a question. I was raised to think that heaven is this wonderful, calm, enjoyable, loving, peaceful place where there's nothing to fear and all is well. Yet I've never heard anybody ask, how do you explain Satan's expulsion?
How do you explain Satan's expulsion from heaven?
Yeah.
Do you have evidence that Satan exists?
No, I'm just wondering if you've ever heard anybody explain it in a manner that you would go,
Usually if somebody's going to throw something that gives me pause, it generally doesn't involve any of the supernatural elements. I guess if you want to explain something, you don't answer it in a way that forces me to ask another question. Like, for instance, if you say, what about Satan? I'm like, well, what about Satan? Do you have evidence that this being exists, that heaven exists, or that he was thrown out of heaven?
Well, but I'm talking about the being.
Whoa.
Sorry about that. Robert, are you still there?
I am.
Sorry about that. Hope we didn't blow out your eardrums there.
I'm going deaf anyhow.
We don't want to help it.
A Christian, say, or somebody who really believes in all of that, has any of them ever addressed that angle of the afterlife and stuff? You know, like, why does Satan get thrown out of heaven if heaven is so wonderful and nobody feels those things?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh, I get you.
That he supposedly did.
Okay.
That's a good question. I guess it creates sort of a flaw idea in this perfect design that you built. Because you built this guy who wants to topple it right away.
Is heaven really so great if
Has anybody addressed that?
I've never really heard that. I mean, it kind of goes into this bigger question that people throw out there, this sort of question of design. This sort of like, if this is so perfect and so wonderful, why would he want to be thrown out of it? Why would something be in there that would be thrown out of it?
Why would you know, if
is that kind of what you're
heaven was created in the first place to be so wonderful where everything is perfect and nothing is wrong, why would there even be a Lucifer in heaven who would go on to be thrown out? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. Or
yeah.
Why would he get those feelings if they're not up there?
Yeah.
Exactly. I honestly, I've never heard anybody put that question to me before.
I'm just wonderful.
Yeah, you are. Thank you, Robert.
You're fantastic, Robert, and thank you very much for calling.
Other thing.
Yeah,
sure. Go right ahead.
I mean, I don't delve into the religious stuff or whatever you were talking about because I'm flipping back and forth from the baseball game. The homosexual thing.
Yeah.
Briefly, I was in a country rock band back in the 90s, and once a year there was a very large homosexual gathering, and they would have country night, and they'd put scarves on, and they'd dress up like they were an urban cowboy or something. And I was taking a break after one of the sets, and this gal comes up and says, "You're a pretty good bass player. I used to play bass in a lesbian band." And I'm going, "Oh, well, I don't really think I don't know any lesbian songs or anything." And he goes, "Well, we play top 40. And I'm going, "Well, wouldn't you just call yourself a top 40 band? And the lesbian thing you could keep to yourself. I assume you're a lesbian or you wouldn't be at this gathering." But it was more important pointed out to me that she was a lesbian than it was to actually talk music. And I'm just going, I don't know what your priorities are, but that's another thing that I don't understand about them.
Well, I think it's the same reason that we have an atheist show, that somebody defines themselves as that because there is this sort of oppression and discrimination against gays and lesbians, as there is as atheists. And why we have an atheist show, that a big part of eradicating that discrimination is for somebody to come out of the closet.
Right.
Well, my favorite bartender is gay, but he never felt that it was important to tell me that he was gay.
Well, it is important to a lot of
I had
people.
an employer that was gay, and he was a little more flamboyant, I guess, if that's the word. But it didn't. Stuff doesn't bother me. You know, we're all here doing life, and enjoy it if you can. And
Okay. Well,
I agree.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why she had to point that out when I.
Well, it is important for a lot of people. It feels that it's a prerequisite for them being honest.
Yeah.
And well, we want to thank you for your call, Robert.
Great.
And thanks for calling in. And I
Yes.
hope that you watch us and the baseball game. So,
Great.
Thanks, Robert.
you take care.
Go Mariners.
So, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chick Tracts.
Oh, yes.
But I love Chick Tracts. Chick Tracts are these little religious propaganda comics. Well, this is printed out. They're free online. But Chick Tracts, if you've never seen one before, then you've obviously never been to a bus station or an ATM, because they are everywhere. They're these scary little comics that even most religious people find kind of funny and scary. But there's one of them in particular. It's not specifically an anti-atheist comic strip, but it deals with atheism. It's actually an anti-Santa Claus Easter Bunny comic strip. And the character in this is our first fictional atheist profile, is Harry Garner from the Chick Tract Fairy Tales. And if you go to chick.com, you can read along. Harry Garner, basically, Harry is, they first start out when Harry's about to be executed, and there's a lot of people calling for his death. But they flash back to Harry as a kid, where he loves him some Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah.
And his
And
parents...
who doesn't, really?
Who doesn't love Santa Claus? Actually, it's easier to, for me, I honestly think it's easier to understand why a kid would believe in Santa Claus. Because Santa Claus leaves behind physical evidence.
That's true.
And that's always kind of funny whenever you watch a TV show where Santa Claus exists in the reality of the show, but an adult doesn't believe in Santa Claus. How do they explain where those presents are coming from? Do they really believe someone is breaking into their house? So anyways, I guess that is not the case in this comic strip, because Harry is so into Santa Claus that he actually, holds his present to his chart and says, there's nothing that can ever make me stop believing in Santa Claus. And his parents have that sort of nervous, like, that sort of, the way they always draw liberals in these comic strips, where they're kind of whining, sort of sweating to themselves. Eventually, Harry takes this belief to school, and he gets teased about it. And they said, Santa Claus is nothing but a lie. And I think we've all had that experience in elementary school. Except Harry does something I haven't seen before. He kills his two classmates. He even yells, I'll kill you both.
And he does.
And he does.
He follows through on the threat.
So at least if you can say the bad things about Harry, that he does actually mean what he says.
Harry means business.
So, yeah. So he gets arrested, and he's actually tied to the bed, and his parents come in. They say it's for his own protection.
Right.
His parents come in, and they have to tell him Santa Claus isn't real. And he screams, Jesus and God and those fairy tales too! And then he promises never to believe anything they say again. He goes to juvie, but before he gets there, he strangles his cellmate. I guess he said something about Santa. You just don't cross this kid on Santa.
Yeah.
And then he threatens the judge. And then we get the usual ending, because it's kind of funny. Chick Tracts have two different endings, and one of them is the one where the main character falls to their knees and cries and says, I'm wrong about everything. And then there's the other ending where they're actually literally thrown into the fire. It's kind of funny because they also show is the little stereotypes they show, where they actually show the sort of these people hate Jesus, and I guess Harry's an example of one of these, that they actually include a Halloween witch, and I think that's supposed to be Madeline Murray O'Hare.
I believe so. She's a little woman holding a little sign that says no prayers.
And I think that's a paleontologist.
And yes, a paleontologist, like holding up a dinosaur bone.
Dinosaur bone, and a pith helmet too. So let's really look at